Corporal Punishment by April, Courtney, Lucia, Manny, and Tony. It's the law. So why not corporal punishment? The first state to abolish school corporal punishment was New Jersey in 1867. The second was Massachusetts, 104 years later in 1971. As of 2015, corporal punishment is banned in state schools, known as public schools in the U.S., in 31 U.S. states and the District of Columbia. Where is it legal? It's still legal in 19 states. Mississippi, Arkansas, and Alabama lead the way with over 50% of their schools still using corporal punishment. Most of these schools are in the South. Now, some of the most alarming statistics are the racial disparities on how punishment is meted out. Students of color, predominantly African American boys, are on the receiving end of a paddle significantly more often than their white counterparts. In Mississippi and Alabama, black students are 51% more likely to be hit than white students in more than half of those states' districts. In 1/5 of districts, that likelihood soars to 500%. Students with disabilities are also at risk. These students are more than 50% more likely to be subject to corporal punishment than their counterparts without disabilities. In 67% of the districts in Alabama, 44% in Arkansas, 46% in Mississippi, and 36% in Tennessee. This table shows the disproportionality of students with disabilities in the 10 states with the highest rates of corporal punishment. Here we see students with disabilities receiving punishment much more often than students in general population. In every state, from Mississippi to Florida, students with disabilities are more likely to receive punishment than the general population counterparts. Ingram versus Wright. Two students were the plaintiff in all these cases brought before the court, James Ingram and Roosevelt Andrews. Ingram and Andrews argued that their Eighth Amendment rights had been violated and claimed that their side of the story needed to be heard before being punished. They also claimed that they needed compensation for the damages the paddling had caused to Ingram. He received a hematoma and had to stay home for school for 11 days to let that heal. The students also claimed that their Eighth Amendment rights had been violated because the punishment was cruel and unusual. Now, for the defense, there were 4 men: Willie J. Wright, the principal; Lemmy Delford, the assistant principal; Solomon Barnes, an assistant principal; and Edwell Wiggum, superintendent of the Dade County School System. Wright, the superintendent, and the assistant principal argued that corporal punishment was not against the students' rights because the Eighth Amendment was writ to protect convicted criminals and not school students. Daly versus Board of Education of Morrill. Now, Daly, the plaintiff in error in the district court and the appealee in this court, had been a teacher with the district for over 32 years. His performance evaluations revealed that he had been a competent and effective teacher during those years. On December 12, 1996, Daly was involved in an incident in which he allegedly struck a 7th grade student, identified as KP. Daly kept 2 students in his classroom after his 3rd period class. Now, the Board of Ed found that the actions of Daly on December 12, 1996 were clearly inappropriate. The Board of Ed further found that the use of physical force out of frustration to strike KP on the head and restraining him by holding his arms constituted just cause within the meaning of the Ed codes, and thereby constitutes insubordination and unprofessional conduct. As a result of these findings, the Board of Ed amends the contract of Robert L. Daly to provide for a suspension without pay for 30 working days, and a requirement that he obtain adequate professional counseling. Serafin versus Board of Excellence in Education. Jessica Serafin was paddled by her San Antonio Charter School principal for breaking a school rule. Serafin was just a few days past her 18th birthday, making her an adult, and she says in court papers she did not consent to being struck 3 times by a wooden paddle called Old Thunder. After she went off campus to buy breakfast, she sued the school, but was lost so far. corporal punishment in schools remains legal in 22 states, according to court papers filed on behalf of the charter school, the School of Excellence in Education. The U.S. Supreme Court today declined to hear the appeal of a former high school student who filed a constitutional challenge of being paddled in public schools. The case was one of three school cases the justices declined to hear as its 2007-08 term winds down. The court also declined to step into a long-running lawsuit challenging the impact of New York State's teachers' test on minority teachers in the New York City school system, and refused to hear the appeal of special education cases in Wisconsin. Georgia school paddling cases.
Video of a Georgia elementary school principal paddling a 5-year-old student has sparked outrage online. Posted to Facebook by the boy's mother, Shayna Marie Perez, the video shows Jasper Primary School Principal Pam Edge and Assistant Principal Lynn McElhenney preparing to paddle the boy. Perez wrote, "They told me if he could not get a paddling, he would have to be suspended. And if he got suspended for even one day, I will go to jail for truancy." She also added, "I can't take care of my kids in jail, and I couldn't do anything to stop them." Nearly half the school districts in Georgia allow the practice of paddling, but Perez said she had signed a form stating her son could not be paddled under any circumstances, a claim the school administrators have disputed. A 1977 Supreme Court ruling states that the spanking of kids in school does not violate the Constitution's ban on cruel and unusual punishment or the right to due process of law.
A viral video watched over 2 million times has cut to the heart of a long, simmering debate in this country about how children should be punished in school. The video, which some may find disturbing, shows a principal paddling a 5-year-old student for bad behavior. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez has more.
We're going to do it. Oh, thank you.
This video reigniting the debate over corporal punishment, a principal disciplining a 5-year-old boy with a paddle.
He almost hit another student and was trying to run around in the bus line, and they were trying to catch him, and he spit on him.
The boy's mother, Shayna Perez, recorded the video. She had consented to the paddling, she says, because she felt pressure from school officials over previous unexcused absences. But now she thinks the punishment went too far.
I'm only going to do it one time.
Unless you wiggle around.
Okay, one time.
According to the school handbook, corporal punishment is allowed for conduct violations, including spitting.
In the state of Georgia, it is absolutely 100% what took place was legal.
The Jasper County Primary School got threatening calls from across the country. The school district here says legally it can't comment on specifics of this incident, but corporal punishment is only used with parental consent. Still, the district here is investigating and looking into its discipline policies. 19 states allow corporal punishment in schools, while 31 have banned the practice. One analysis found that nationwide, a child is forcefully punished in school once every 20 seconds.
There are big regional differences in corporal punishment, with corporal punishment being much more common in the South than in the North.
In this southern town, signs of support for the educators.
From what I saw, no, it was not taken too far.
As the debate over discipline rages on. Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News, Monticello, Georgia.
Now, understanding Black America and the spanking debate. A few years back, NFL football star Adrian Peterson's child abuse scandal was sparked a national debate in America about spanking children and the growing illegality of certain kinds of abusive corporal punishments. In a personal piece, author Stacey Patton describes the complex legacy of corporal punishment in Black America.
For more on this developing story, let's welcome in Fox Sports 1 legal analyst Rob Becker. And Rob, with this kind of penalty, what kind of sentencing could Peterson be facing here if he's found guilty?
If he's found guilty, he's facing between 180 days and 2 years for causing a bodily injury to a child. And based on Jay's description, if it was something that made you go to the doctor, it seems pretty clear that that was bodily injury.
Could this just be, I'm not even going to say just minimal, but could this be a spanking? Could this be a father just disciplining his child a little bit too much and then left the bruise and doctors got involved and now the law's involved?
Well, look, I mean, perhaps that's how Adrian Peterson disciplines his children with a switch, but it doesn't matter. The statute in Texas makes no differentiation of disciplining a child. If you hurt your child, you've caused the same crime as if it wasn't your child.
Is it because is it because it's a switch and not a belt? Does it? I mean, is it illegal to spank your child with a switch?
No, it's not specifically the switch. It's the injury. But of course, if you use a switch, you're more likely to get an injury to your child. And what this case is simply going to come down to now, it seems, is was he reckless, which means he knew there was a possibility he would hurt his child and did it anyway, or was he just negligent, which means he should have known that there was a possibility to hurt his child, but he didn't know. And I got to tell you, if you're disciplining your child with a switch, you've got to know there's a risk that you're going to injure him. So I have to believe this is recklessness, which would tend to be towards 2 years. But even if I'm wrong, as long as he's found guilty at all, he's going to have at least 180 days.
Now, I'm hearing in my ear that there might be some confusion about what a switch actually is. And a switch, for those who don't know, it's like a little small tree branch. And a lot of times the leaves are taken off and it's used to discipline children. It was used basically back in the day with a lot of my friends as well, too. But what's the difference between recklessness and negligence? And what difference could that make in the sentencing?
It's just his knowledge. If he's sitting there, and any parent would know that if you do this, you might really hurt your kid. That's recklessness. But if somehow you just don't know what you're doing and you just never realized you might hurt your kid, that would be negligence. But, is it real? I mean, if you're disciplining your child, whatever you do, you've got to know what the risks are. So that's why I think that gets him up into recklessness and closer to 2 years as opposed to 180 days.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, and I'm going to let the legal process play out, but it's hard to believe that Adrian Peterson, and look, I don't know what's going on in this world right now, but last year he lost a kid due to abuse by the hands of an abuser. So we'll see how this all plays out. Rob Becker, the legal analyst, analysis when it comes to Adrian Peterson and this indictment that's about to come down.
State versus Pendergrass. This was an indictment for an assault and battery tried before Dick J. at Caswell on the last circuit. On a trial, the facts were that the defendant kept a school for small children, that upon one occasion, after mild treatment toward a little girl of 6 or 7 years of age, had failed, the defendant whipped her with a switch so as to cause marks upon her body, which disappeared in a few days. 2 marks were also proved to have existed, one on the arm and the other on the neck, which were apparently made with a larger instrument, but which also disappeared in a few days. His Honor instructed the jury that the right of the defendant to chastise a child was coextensive with that of a parent, and that they should be cautious in coming to a conclusion that excessive chastisement had been used. But, as the child was of tender years, if they believed that she had been whipped by the defendant with either a switch or other instrument so as to produce the marks described to them, the defendant was guilty. A verdict was found for the state, and the defendant appealed. Sims versus Wong. Plaintiff. Letha Benita Sims is a minor, age 15. In May of 1973, she was a student at Schaefer Junior High School, Springfield, Ohio. Among the disciplinary punishments used at Schaefer Junior High School were detention and corporal punishment. When punishment by detention, a student remains after school for a period of 45 minutes. Corporal punishment is administered by a teacher or by the principal by use of a paddle, supplied by the Springfield Board of Ed, on the buttocks of the student being disciplined. The maximum number of blows with the paddle, referred to at Schaefer Junior High School as cracks, never exceeds 3. Corporal punishment may be administered by the principal of a school in accordance with their Ohio Ed Code. Baker versus Owen. The mother of 6th grader Russell Baker instructed school officials not to corporally punish her son because she opposed the practice on principle. After the student violated a school rule, officials administered corporal punishment and did not provide him with procedural due process. The mother then sued school officials, claiming that they violated her right to choose disciplinary methods under the 14th Amendment, and that the use of corporal punishment violated the 8th Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. The court determined that the type and form of corporal punishment in Baker, 2 licks to the bottom with a wooden drawer divider, did not rise to the level of cruel and unusual punishment. The Supreme Court later clarified that the cruel and unusual punishment clause does not apply to corporal punishment in schools, even if it is exceptionally harsh in nature, as in Ingram v. Wright. Now, in Los Angeles Unified, in 1986, the state of California banned corporal punishment. And in 2014, the introduction of restorative justice to stop unnecessary suspension of minority students, disproportionately African American males, students with disabilities, for defiant behaviors. Now, currently, LAUC follows a school-wide positive behavior approach to discipline. Los Angeles Unified has taken a different approach in dealing with discipline problems. It is encouraged more to use positive approaches to student discipline and classroom management. Here we have the School Climate Bill of Rights. And what is encouraged is called school-wide positive behavior intervention support. These alternatives to suspensions are more positive and geared towards restorative justice. There is also a tiered intervention support where there are alternatives to suspension. For example, if a student caused physical injury to another person, the first thing is that the student is conferenced, they have a behavior contract, there's peer mediation, and we try to teach a child some conflict resolution. If it continues to happen, then the referral process goes further into what's called a student support and progress team. They do a threat assessment and help the student participate in restorative justice. This tiered approach gives the child different opportunities to learn more appropriate school behavior. Now, the next few slides are what students can do and their responsibilities, and also what the parents can do and what their responsibilities are as well for their children. And the focus here is to not focus on the punitive, as it was with corporal punishment, but to teach children and students how to behave in a more appropriate behavior, to resolve conflicts in a way that aren't violent. And that is our presentation. Thank you very much for sticking with us.